in. So we're live, everybody. We'll wait for people to dial in. People are piling in as we speak. Welcome, though, on the 23rd of February to this unique general session, because the 23rd February 2021 is not going to happen again. There is not going to be another one. So we'll try and make it as unique as we can. While everybody's dialing in, housekeeping, most of you quite familiar with the calendar, but there are two sessions today. The first one with EVA, Corporate Curios, 5 p.m. Eastern Time US, which is 10 p.m. in the UK. And followed by Wayne, Wayne Metaphors for Success, 9 p.m. Eastern Time, which is 2 a.m. in the UK. So those are the two sessions lined up for later. Be there if you can. They're both great sessions with real storytellers and great raconteurs. So you won't regret dialing into those. You'll have a great time, very informative, and EVA informing us on managing people, problems in corporate life, particularly. Wayne giving us real examples of things that we can use in our daily work and life. So I think enough people have probably dialed in. We've gone to the top of the hour. We are live, and I'm going to carry on with my thoughts for the day. John has joined us. Giovanna's on. Coral's on now. Great to see you, Coral. Haven't seen you for a while. Nancy, Toba is on. I've already said hello to most people. Nicola, Cyril, Lindsay's on. Mark, I've said hello to. There are dozens of us already. Welcome, everybody. So the topic for the day is priorities and prioritizing. I really wanted to share some thoughts on how important it is to prioritize and the impact that it has if we do, and also the power of routine and repetition in terms of prioritizing. All of those things are linked. Somebody just mentioned, I think Jody mentioned procrastination before we went live. That's another side topic we might get onto. Anyway, quote alert, the first quote of the day. The key is not to prioritize what's on your schedule, but to schedule your priorities. That is what Stephen Covey tells us. And we might take note of that before we start. But remember, as I think we've heard before from someone, imagine that we're all given a jar full of banknotes when we're born. And that's the only jar, and those are the only banknotes that we will be given for the whole of our allotted life. Spend them wisely, in other words. That is the jar, and that is the set of banknotes you've been given. So spend them very wisely. Those notes represent the time we've been given for the whole of our life. And as we spend them, the jar empties and we can't refill it. No more banknotes. So spend that time very, very wisely, in other words. Now that sounds, again, obvious and easy, but it takes conscious effort and planning to do that well. And don't we all know it? Don't I just know it? I suffer from this every day. And it's definitely probably the thing that we'd almost identify as holding us back and stopping us achieving our true potential. We have to be in the moment to judge how we're using our time and whether we're using it wisely. You've got to be very conscious to do that, and whether you're using it wisely and on your priorities first before you do anything else. Now, setting a bit of context, if we were to compare ourselves today to a lot of less fortunate people who are literally struggling living outdoors with personal safety issues, cold, shelter, food, basic medicine needs, and often with no education, we are definitely relatively privileged. And I know a lot of us have had a tough time. But in context, most of us really have the freedom to prioritize. If we want to, we can. We're not in a position where we're literally surviving hand to mouth outside. Now, I know the days aren't easy, money's not easy, choices are tight at the moment, but generally we can prioritize certain things in our day. So we do have daily choices and we can actually take them. So let's not waste our advantages and our skills by allowing ourselves just to walk along in a passive state every day. In other words, to be swept along like a bobbing cork in a river, just being taken by the current. We have the choice not to let that happen, to be active, not passive. We can do all sorts of things. One of them is we can set a priority plan in place. For example, we could set one main priority for each week that we have to achieve by the end of that week. Now, for those of us already who are familiar with the 12-week plans that have been discussed many times, 12 weeks represents a mini year, with each week representing 1 month. So you can more easily follow what's going on. You can see 12 weeks. Seeing 12 months is pretty hard to track. Track over 12 months is a challenge. So you can judge your progress across 12 weeks with 12 priorities, for example, much more easily. And it's easier to prioritize and easier to check the targets and set them. And as part of that, routine and repetition also generates enormous power and enormous motion. So setting a plan with a main weekly priority and associated supporting priorities, in my view, is absolutely key to ensuring that we consistently work on those goals that we're setting ourselves. We have to consistently and consciously prioritize. And if we don't, inevitably they get diluted or they're not met at all. And we've got to set them and make them the center of our routine, not just some kind of adjunct, some add-on, some afterthought. They have to be at the center of every day of our routine to make sure they get tackled first and hit first in terms of goals. And that's a routine that we've got to follow repeatedly, not just for one day of the week, but every day of the week, every day of the month. Otherwise, when we get to the end of a period, we're just going to say, well, how is it that I didn't get there? Why? What happened? And we know why. We know the answer. It happens to us all, I'm sure, on many days of the month. It's hard to keep it going, but we have to try and get better at it. And also, if we are actually finding that we're cramming in too many priorities, well, that can mean there's something wrong, that maybe you haven't defined your key goals properly, or perhaps you've got too many competing goals and you need to take out the gardening fork and weed some of them out, in terms of talking about the garden again. As Bruce Lee put it, it is not a daily increase, but a daily decrease. Hack away at the inessentials, the inessentials. That is how Bruce Lee put it, which I love. So we're trying to decrease, not increase, and do what is more important with our day. Let the inessentials go, or put them on one side and get to them if you have the luxury of doing so. Jimi Hendrix put it a different way. He said, I stand up next to a mountain and I chop it down with the edge of my hand. One of the quotes from one of the songs, which I love. You can reduce the problem, cut the problem down, and actually achieve fitting it into the day. It's just there's no point in setting yourself so many competing priorities in one day that you know in your heart of hearts you haven't got a hope of completing them. It just will dilute all your efforts. So really, firstly, cut down in order to move up. And then secondly, less is more in this case. Less is more. Now, another facet of this prioritization problem is that many of us serve others very well, but we don't serve ourselves. And that strikes me all the time. How much time are you able or willing to dedicate to yourself and to your needs and your priorities? And are you actually doing that? Are you actually dedicating that time? Or are you really just finding that you're responding to or prioritizing the needs set for you by other people? For example, it might be looking after grandchildren, dropping everything when someone calls you and says they need help. That's fantastic. It's laudable. It's good. We all do it. But there does need to be some give and take in this time budget. And time has to be allocated for your priorities as well. And by the way, it's always worth asking, would they down tools for you as you do for them in priority, firstly, before everything else? Or are they just takers, really soaking up everything you're giving and not really giving you anything back? Always worth asking that. There are some people out there who definitely do that. So for me, helping others is the greatest calling we can have, but we do need to remember ourselves at the same time, and we are a priority too. Therese reminded me the other day to put on my own oxygen mask first on this flight of life, and we had a long chat about it. I know a lot of us have achieved prioritizing, and we're seeing the difference already in some of the members of the group. I'm very proud of Star, who I talked to recently again. She has prioritized many things in the last few months, and she's now off the runway and airborne on the next stage of life, and it's looking pretty exciting. So again, next thing, are we clear on the priorities, and are we clear on those in pursuit of our worthy ideal? In order to set priorities, you need to be doing so behind a clear and worthy ideal or a burning desire. Otherwise, they don't really line up and get you forward to the pinpoint that you want to reach. Your worthy ideal sets those goals, and that drives the priorities. And by the way, if you have a clear set of goals, I certainly find that the mist should clear and the priorities really set themselves. So perhaps test yourself on that. You know, there's my goal, backing my worthy ideal and my burning desire. It should be absolutely clear what you have to do in priority. And if it isn't, there may be something wrong with the plan or with your clarity over what the plan involves. So be clear to do that. And also be clear that something has to give. There's a price to pay for all of this, everything we're doing, our entrepreneurial endeavors, our life endeavors. If we're pursuing this burning desire, something has to give. There's a price to pay, as we've heard in the books and we've talked about, and we have to be prepared to pay it. Some things have to be dropped. Another quote alert: your days are numbered. Use them to throw open the windows of your soul to the sun. If you do not, the sun will soon set, and you with it. One of our favorite philosophers, Marcus Aurelius, Roman emperor, said that from the Stoic tradition. So he was very clear on the effect it can have on your life if you don't allow these things to happen and shine light onto your soul in line with what you want to do. I also wanted to say today, I wanted to reveal a secret to you all today. And I'm going to have a Glenn-like pause here for effect. But I wanted to say that you are a champion. And I really mean you are a champion. But we, all of us in this group, can only see the outcome and see you as the champion you are once you've prioritized and put yourself to work to complete the required priorities and tasks. That's what it takes. So remember, to use John's words, even imperfect and done is not going to happen, let alone perfect and done. The imperfect and done is not going to happen without setting priorities behind that. You just won't even get to that level. It'll be imperfect and nothing. So we have to make changes. We have to prioritize. One aspect of prioritization in daily life for me that's come up many times recently is the fact that we've all plugged into these new worlds, these new technologies, these new gadgets, these new softwares. And that's been a challenge. It's required us to adapt, to learn, and to reinvent ourselves pretty much every day. But we have to make that a priority too, as part of this budget, this time budget. The pressure on us all to adapt, to undergo a really significant transformational change is going to impact everything that we do. And we're impacted in turn by everything that's going on around us, particularly with the COVID disruptions and the tearing up of traditional approaches. I spoke about this recently in the Life and Business Tools sessions at some length. And if we don't prioritize improving our skill sets, that train is going to carry on without us. The tech train has left the station and it ain't stopping. So the train of innovation and progress, it really is a relentless express, as I like to call it, which you can't jump off. If we want to reach the chosen stations we've set for ourselves, we have to keep rolling on that train. And that means doing the work and learning to stay on it. But really, it should be fun. Learning and developing ourselves should be fun. I think a lot of you have enjoyed it recently. If you're pursuing the right burning desire and worthy ideal, because you should be learning the things that allow you to get there, that should be fun. And you need to prioritize it. So another aspect, I do really believe that we can change everything. We can change the whole road that we're on if we haven't done that yet. And that's going to take prioritization. We can actually change our destination. We can decide to go down a different road, but it has to be a priority if that's going to have an impact. We have to really say, no, we're changing road, changing destination. You've got to put that first then to break off that old journey. You can see that road winding in front of you to that horizon, but you know where it's leading already. You've read the map, you're on that road. If you don't do something, you won't reach a different destination. You have to change roads. And all of us have been facing this challenge over the past several months. We must make it a priority if we really intentionally want to change roads. But we can take that action right now. And do you think if we did so, we'd be in a very different place by December? Well, absolutely, yes, we will be. We will be towards the destination we really want, not on the road we're on, going where we know where it's leading and we don't want to be. So believe me, if we prioritize now, by December, things could look very, very different. And if anyone on the call who's not already doing it could just blast through their lists and reset their priorities, I really think incredible things could happen by December. We could all take stock on the December year-end calls and say, wow, I changed my track in February and look what's happened. You've all got the talent and ability. Let's just use it on the right things to get us forward. And finally, on priority thoughts, we often speak with John about who is showing up. Well, that's very important, but if we don't have clear priorities, it doesn't really matter who's showing up. We can be enthusiastic, but we're not going to do the right things that day, then and there, to get us in the right direction if we don't prioritize what those things are and consciously know them in advance and follow up on them. For me, it's like showing up with a gun, but with no ammunition. We've got the gun ready to fire, but we don't have the ammunition that we should have had to put in it. And we won't hit the target. We just aren't going to hit the target. So what have we covered in the past few minutes? Well, firstly, making prioritization an absolute priority. Secondly, what are we going to throw out of our hot air balloon in order to gain altitude and reach the destination? We should only be carrying our priorities in the balloon with us, really. And remember the jar full of banknotes that I mentioned that we can spend. We need to spend them wisely. They're the only ones we've got. That's our time. We all also have choice in this group to prioritize what matters most, so we can use that choice. Let's do it. Fourthly, we can make a 12-week priority plan or any other priority plan that serves us personally and plug in those personalities to those priorities rather to the right weeks. Fifthly, are we letting other people set or dictate our priorities for us? And what can we actually do about that? Can we do something? We can change. We can make changes. 6, do we have clear priorities in the first place in pursuit of that worthy ideal? Do we actually have them? Are they clear to us? 7th, we talked about already having the capacity, in my view, to be champions. You are a champion, but which priority adjustments can you make so that we can all see the champion's outcome we want to see for you? 8th, have we prioritized our innovation and learning and our constant reinvention of ourselves so we can play that game and stay in the game? 10th, are we prepared to prioritize changing the road we're on in order to change our destination? Are we actually prepared to do that? Because by December, things could look very different. Will it make a difference in December? In my view, absolutely yes. Just as a thought in towards closing here, before I open the floor, remember that prioritizing is going to mean putting certain other things and people, and it's mostly people, second. That doesn't mean that we have to be ruthless or that we have to be unkind, but it does require us to recognize that others will quite naturally take all that we're offering and all that we have to give. They always will. It's human nature. So we have to control what we can offer, or we risk preventing our own progress. It's down to us. It's not down to other people to say, don't worry, I'm not taking that from you. You offer and they will take. So you have to set the limits that you're prepared to live with, to leave time for your own priorities. You might even have to say no. And it's very hard to say no if we haven't prepared ourselves in advance to say no. It's a plan. You've got to say, that's what I'm not going to agree to. That's my time, I'm blocking it. Now, as Goethe said, things which matter most must never be at the mercy of things which matter least. Another quote that I love, very, very clear, absolutely unequivocal. So we can remain kind, we can remain understanding, but we can prepare in advance to prioritize and to say no where we have to say no. And I really think we owe that to ourselves. And at this point, before I open the floor, can I leave you with Abraham Lincoln, who said, and in the end, it's not the years in your life that count, it's the life in your years, which really, really sums it up for me. That is a profound quote, which I'm not going to forget in a hurry. So I wanted to open the floor. Love to hear all your thoughts on the things we've covered. Please share your thoughts. They're all pearls of wisdom. They help everyone in the group. Even if you don't speak very often, we've all got something to share about what we've been through, how we tackle these problems, what we think of these problems. Let's hear as many angles as possible. So I'm throwing it open. You'll be relieved to hear, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. Nicola is first up. Nicola, how are you doing?
Hello, I'm good. I could sit and listen to your talks all day, Adrian. Always very thought-provoking. And I think this has always been, this is for me one of the most important subjects, because for me personally, if I don't get this right and don't have that structure and prioritization, I'll drift, because I've been there a lot last year. So I have to get this right. And probably some of the things that were coming up for me is it's ever evolving. So we might have a structure and a system that works, but for various reasons, I guess you'll continue to understand more about yourself, and you'll adapt and change things. So I made a few changes, probably at the beginning of the year, with the support of Shannon on John's wife's course. And I thought I'd share a few of them because they're working quite well. And the first one for me is understanding where I'm most productive in the day, and then really using that time effectively. So for me, I know it's first thing in the morning, so it's between about 9 and 11 is where my brain's in gear. So that is now my kind of 2-hour power hour, as I call it. So I'll get all of the quite demanding, or some of the hardest tasks, the kind of logical thinking I need to do, that all happens in that 2-hour power hour, knowing that the afternoon tends to be more kind of creative work that I do. So that's one of the changes I've made, which seems to be working well. And then the other one you touched on is just remembering to kind of celebrate when we do achieve what we set out to do. And I've actually started to do that at the end of each day. And one of the things I've found is working as a solopreneur now, you haven't got other people around you. And I'm just so used to working in an environment with hundreds of people and your team and your manager to encourage you. And that gives you a sense of whether you know you're doing a good job and whether it's making a difference. And when you work for yourself, what I've realized is you're the one that's got to tell you whether you're doing a good job and you're making a difference. And if you forget to do that, you can quite easily, at the end of the week, really be giving yourself a hard time for all the things you haven't done. And you forget to actually appreciate and celebrate the things that you have done. So I'm making a conscious effort to do that at the end of each day. And it's just a bit of self-motivation, because then you wake up the next morning, you've got that kind of spring in your step, wanting to do it again. So that's made quite a big difference. And then the third one, which I'm still working on, is figuring out where I'm most productive in terms of like my working environment. So obviously working for yourself now, you are working for yourself the majority of the time. But what I've realized is I'm actually probably more productive if I'm working with someone in a group setting. Obviously we haven't been able to do that face to face, but I've started to schedule, just with a few people that help me out in my business, schedule regular Zoom meetings with them. And it's far more inspirational for me to have that kind of time. You're just bouncing ideas off people, and things that might be going around in your own head for days on end, you can just bring to a really quick conclusion in like a half-hour session. So just figuring out when it's right to work alone versus work with somebody else, or even in a group or a team, I think is quite important as well. And one last thing, I'll let someone else go, is I just happened to come across some interesting tools this week. I don't know if this is of interest to anyone, but it's taken off this year, and there's 2 tools. One was called Focus Mate, and one was called Remote Cave. I don't know if anyone's come across them. But the idea is it's an online community where you can buddy up with someone, and you've got an accountability partner or an accountability group, and it's quite structured. So you'll go on and you'll sign up for, I don't know, a half a day. The group will get together. You'll set what you want to achieve in that session. And then I think they do kind of 50-minute working slots. So it's as if you're working in an office, I guess. So for that 50 minutes, there's no interaction. You are just really focused on your task for that time. And at the end of it, you'll come off and you'll have a discussion with your accountability partner as to whether you've achieved what you've achieved. So I guess it's just another way, if you can't trust yourself to hold yourself accountable, you can form part of an online group where they will hold you accountable. And apparently it's been proven it's between 200% and 300% more productive in that setting for some people. So it was quite interesting.
Wow, great, Nicola, absolutely great. I think you've just written the handbook for us on how to do it. So I hope everyone got that down. 4 things there, 4 great things. Perhaps we should do a workshop on this. It sounds as though there's a lot of material. Nicola's power 2 hours, hitting it hard on the hard task first thing in the morning, and doing 2 solid hours where we're freshest and we've got the vigor to overcome mountains, really. Secondly, taking stock and celebrating, but checking where we are. remembering that we evolve and that we have to change our systems as we learn more. Fantastic. And thirdly, where best are we working? And Nicola's using the Zoom meetings now to have a very effective 30 minutes. That's great. Plus the tools for accountability. There's nothing like accountability partners to say, hey, you told me yesterday you were going to write this ebook. What happened? Great, Nicola. That was fantastic. Very, very useful. Thank you. So we've got Virginia next up. Hi, Virginia.
Good morning. Hi, everyone. So I just wanted to say that this is very much in line with what I was thinking about this morning. I find that when I'm doing things that I want to do, I don't need to reward myself. A lot of times I have different planners and they say, well, if you accomplish that, what is going to be your reward? And to me, I don't need a reward for accomplishing something I want to do. What I discovered this morning is that where I need a reward is for actually doing the things that I know I should do that I don't want to do, which this morning included taking a shower and getting dressed for the day, because I have to get out in the field today and I have to be ready to leave in about an hour. And I've got meetings in between now and then. In fact, I've got a meeting that starts in just a few minutes at the bottom of the hour, so I'll have to jump off. On my refrigerator, I hung about a week ago things that I would do that I should do to take care of myself. Am I taking my vitamins? Am I drinking 8 glasses of water a day? Am I exercising? And then I have columns Monday through Sunday, and I check it off. And then when I look at it, I think, wow, here I thought I really was drinking 8 glasses of water, but it doesn't seem that I am, or no, this is the 5th day in a row that I didn't exercise. So that's really accountability. Well, I added on to the list doing things I should do that I don't want to do. So I could check this off and give myself a pat on the back for making myself do those things, because in the end, I've got to do them anyway. And it works better if I do them in the manner that gets them the most productive and the most efficient outcome on there. I don't know if anyone's familiar with the author Louise Hayes, Hayes, Gail shaking her head, Mandy shaking. Okay. So I remember in her book a long time ago, she combated this by saying, well, it's not that I have to do or whatever, or I should do, but it was more like, if I wanted to, I could do this type, which was the things that she was trying to weed out as low priorities and not make herself feel bad because she hadn't done them on there. I might go back and pick up one of her books. But that was my aha this morning, and this fits right in line with what you're saying, Adrian, of I need to prioritize, but I also have to focus on what I need to do in a timely manner so that I can get to the other end of it. And that's my 2 cents for the day. And I don't know why my picture's not showing up, because it's there when I go into Zoom, it shows it to me, but when I log on here, it's not. So technology, who knows?
The technology gets us again. Virginia, that's great. So you really have recognized the need to prioritize, the need to weed out and simplify, and to remind yourself of the key things. We're all doing the same thing. We've all got the same problem. So that's great tips and great thoughts. Thank you, Virginia. Thank you. Ego is next up. Ego, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. Hi, Adrian. Thanks for another profound session. Topic rather. So I agree that I always maintain that my time is my most precious asset. So I aim with intention, to spend it wisely. And to make the most of my time, I actually plan wisely by prioritizing. But the thing about prioritizing, though, is we have to be, and I think you mentioned this, we have to be flexible about reprioritizing based on what's going on. So I might have a priority for the week or for the month, but things move around or circumstances change, then you adjust accordingly, rather than, just kind of going down that path to nowhere, right? The other key point is focus. So I think, Nicola touched on this a bit, similar to Nicola. I know what time of the day I'm most productive, very early in the morning. So in order to be focused, I make sure I have everything I need around me. So focus is a big thing. Without focus, I'm not able to achieve my results. So I organize my space to maximize my productivity. So I'm hitting my goals. So early in the morning, the things that are most important to getting me over that finish line, I make sure I do those first. I put them in my planner, in my calendar, and I prioritize, and basically I schedule my priorities. And until those are done, I don't move on to the next. I think I've gotten better at that because I refuse to have any distraction. So I remove all forms of distraction, either physical. So in my working space, for example, I only have what I need on my desk. And then the phone's off, all windows are shut down, and I only have open what I'm working on. And then the last thing I wanted to touch on is that, I think Glenn touched on this a few weeks ago, where you're basically shaving people off your life who are distractions, right? And it comes down to, putting first things first. What is first is, the first thing for me is achieving the goals that I've set. If there are people or things in my life that actually distract me or pull me away from achieving those goals, I'm actually better at cutting them off. It did, when I first mentioned it some weeks ago, a friend that I'd had for a very long time, when I made the decision to actually cut this person off, and I said why, I basically did not, they consumed a lot of my time. 3 hours, just basically talking about themselves and their problems. The one time where I said they wanted my opinion, and I said, actually, no, I don't have anything to say. What would you do? The person said, what would you do if you were going through this? And I said, I don't know what to say, because I know I will not be in the position you're in. I will have dealt with it ahead of time. Guess what? They actually stopped calling me, and I'm in a better place because I'm not taking calls. So I think it's really important to put first things first. Knowing what that first thing is, identifying that is important, and then putting that first, starting with the end goal in mind. So thank you.
Ego, that's wonderful. A great summary. And really, yes, I mean, we can set those priorities. We've got to decide what they are, but give ourselves a fair chance in the day by organizing, getting ready, and not allowing for distractions, switching off the phone. That's all critical stuff around the priorities you've set. Otherwise, you're, again, going to dilute the time you have in the day to fulfill them. And deciding who's asking for too much from you and perhaps giving them a little bit less or nothing if they don't merit it is not a bad thing. And sometimes, I'm afraid, we have to do it. So that's pause for thought, certainly for a lot of us who get bombarded by people wanting something. That's great, Ego. Thank you very much for those thoughts. John is going to speak. Lovely to hear you, John.
Thank you. It's lovely to be here. You're lovely. Hey, how do you say
That's
schedule? Is it schedule? Schedule?
Scheduled and lovely.
Schedule. Schedule.
Schedule.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry for my boorish Americanisms. So I've got this life plan. I've got goals and I've got roles. We talked about this with Steve Covey, 7 habits, roles and goals, right? This is the purpose is the root. The roles and goals are the route, ROUTE, right? The route that we're on. And then, of course, the fruit, right, is the results that we get, assuming we're actually effective, which, of course, is what the whole book is about. So I'm thinking right now, as I look at some of my less than fulfilled, less than fruitful roles and goals, and what takes me off of that. And as I look and I do this periodically, as I look at, what I'm choosing to do with my time. And yes, this is a recurring theme in my life and therefore on these calls. What have I put my attention on? Because I only have so many units that I can spend, right? What have I put my attention on for the sake of expedience? Expedience. Well, I know how to do that, right? This other thing, which yes, is very purposeful and it's got a bigger goal. It's more long range, deferred gratification. But right now, this will bear fruit. Now, for me, that's just been a challenge of taking on projects, other people's projects, right? Hey, John, we got this hot sizzling deal. And oh my goodness, we need a closer. And we were thinking of you. And here's what we're projecting. We're going to get this thing to $1 million a month with you. We could probably do that in like 90 days to 6 months. And like, holy crap. And here's your cut. All right. All right. And so I'm like, oh, that's a good opportunity. Looks good. I like the people who are behind it. I don't know if they can manage a business, but they've got a good track record with other things. And I dive in and I cram and I'm eating this thing up. I'm selling it to myself, right? Yeah. This is the offer. This is how it works, right? Here's the ideal target. Here's the money aspect of it. And we do it and it crashes Somebody pulls the plug, something happens. Perhaps there's someone in that organization, as I was listening to Ego, right? Perhaps there's someone in that organization who is chronically in a low emotional state that brings down the average state of the group, and that perhaps, and this happens in life, some of you can take inventory and look and see where this may have happened in organizations where someone who I would say would be covertly antagonistic towards the purposes of the group. Maybe you're getting too much credit, or maybe somebody else in office politics or whatever, and so they sabotage. Oh, I had no idea, right? And they wreck a project or something. Which wasn't your role. Like I had nothing to do with that, right? But why is this person? And sometimes it's the same, usual suspects that show up in multiple things. At least that's how it's occurred for me. And there are people who I won't work with. Like I've actually had conversations with people where they came to me with a business expansion project, and I know that we know some of the same people, and I ask, is that person involved? And they say no. I'm like, oh, okay, keep talking. And sometimes I'll get a little chuckle because they know I'm not going down that road. No. If they're involved, this will self-destruct. It will. Tell me that I got a crystal ball. Tell me whatever you want to tell me. Don't sign me up. I'm out. If they're in, I'm out. And I guess that's in some ways, a nice barometer to decide what to say no to. But how many other things? I just had this project. And I'm lamenting it a bit here too, because I've got so many things that I want to do with my brand, which requires effort, right? And it's delayed gratification. It's not like, John decided to, do something, and a week later, it's gold bullion falling from the sky or whatever. So I put off things that I know I could be doing. Adrian, you and I have had this conversation for months now. For months, I've got stuff that I got to release. But I had this project that came up. And really good people, and they really could use my assistance. And so I'm like, okay, let's get in it. And it lasted a month. And I don't even know why. The people that I had no cause over, I had no communication directly with the CEO of the guy, the people, they pulled the plug. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. And I closed 50% of their leads at $10,000 each. I closed 50% at 10 grand each. In like an hour, from zero, like who are these people, to here's 10 grand. I closed 50%. Yeah, that's why they brought me in, because I'm like releasing the Kraken. I'm not trying to brag or anything here, but I'm really, really freaking good at a couple of things. They pulled the plug. I just pissed away a month. Yeah, I made a few bucks. Whatever, right? How many more months can I piss away? What's my age? Look at that schedule. You know what? Here's the thing. Here's the thing. If it's not on my calendar, it's not going to happen. It doesn't exist. It doesn't freaking exist, man. You know what? It's not on my calendar. Now, these other things, which were urgencies, back to Covey, right? Important, yeah. Purposeful, yeah. Urgent. Yeah, because of other people's agendas. Because of other people's agendas, they were urgent. I gotta learn how to say no a bit more. I think I've learned that. I think I've been disabused of my erroneous ways because I don't know. I'm just tired of saying no to some of the most important thing, which I think, and again, it's not in the next 10 minutes or anything, but I think will serve much more people in much less time. Here's the barometer. Here's the question: what decision will cause the most good to the most people in the least amount of time? So that could be one starting point. And I guess the corollary to that is what decision would cause more harm to more people, or would eat up a bunch of time. And so that's the thing for me, Adrian. It's the great arbitrary. It's time, right? Do I go for expedience and put fruit on the tree right now with stuff I know how to do? Or do I defer gratification, see the bigger picture? And I'm asking if it's either or, right? Because I don't multitask. I don't. I get laser focused on stuff, which is why I get the results that, the stats that I get. If I'm on it, I am on it, and it's going to happen. If I'm not on it, I am not on it. It doesn't exist. Holy crap. Listen to me, guys. Anybody know a good therapist? All right, I'm done talking.
John, that's great though. And you've hit on one of the central problems that I've personally lived with for years, and that's other people's projects, other opportunities. There are more opportunities than you could ever take up. And maybe some people in the group don't yet believe that, but it's true. Opportunities, as you start to advance, will come your way. The problem is they take you away from your train track and onto somebody else's. And then believe me, whether it's now because you diffuse your time as John's just done and wasted a month, or later, it will happen. And what I mean by later is you tend to launch off on things, then maybe 6 months later or a year later, something comes to fruition and you've got to down tools on your work to do everything they need you to do because you've agreed to get involved in this whole initiative. So it's not always obvious what it is you're committing to on day one. It can hit you in the back of the neck a year later, 2 years later, 6 months later, when you wreck your own plans because you took on one too many things. And it's very hard to say no, particularly when you're a solopreneur and you're not sure where the next bill or the next revenue is coming from. We tend to take on more than we need, just like airlines selling more seats than they need to sell, just to try and fill the plane. So we end up overfilling the plane, and that damages our own priorities and our own work. And I can absolutely guarantee you that is the case because I've lived with that. And John, I think, has had many similar experiences. So those are great thoughts, John. Really, as John says, the fox chasing too many chickens. And as someone once said to me, you can't go down every rabbit hole. That's the British version, John. So it's true. It really is true. It requires enormous dedication to your goal and discipline to say, I'm not going to agree to anything else until I've fulfilled my priority goal and I've got there. If you succeed in that and it's all rolling nicely and you've built it up, sure, take on a few more projects if you feel inclined to do so. But if you do that before you've got to your goal, you may never reach it. You may never reach it. And John and I will not wanting to be having the same conversation at the end of the year we had last year about courses we're going to release, books we're going to write, which I haven't done, John hasn't done. We've got to stop that. That cycle has to be broken. So John, that's great thoughts for everybody today. Appreciate that. Now, I don't know if anyone else wants to come out. John's on mute, I think. Anyone else?
You know what? I've got another book.
Yeah.
I got 2 other books in me that got to come out. And I mean, thank goodness I published, Integrity is Everything. That was over a decade ago, right? So that's something where I extricated myself from my busyness and hid in a cabin, disappeared, right? Nobody could talk to me. And a week later, after thinking about it for 20 years, a week later, I had the book. That's not that big of a deal, right? And so I'm thinking now, for anybody who wants to offer me a project, insert 1 Bitcoin to turn this machine on, and then we'll talk. Insert 1 coin, which Bitcoin dropped 10 grand in the last 12 hours or something. I mean, that may not even be a good entry fee, but I don't know, that would probably wake people up. Insert 1 Bitcoin here. I don't know. Do with that what you will. Put that on your schedule.
Interesting thought, John. Interesting way of tackling the problem.
Right.
But yeah, everyone's going to ask you to do things for them. Sure, they always do. They always do, whether it's in business or personally. We've all seen it. I'm sure we've all seen it. So no other hands up at the moment. Could be a short session unless someone wants to dive in.
Yeah, Adrian, I was just going to add to that. I think it's
Hi, Nicola.
Brilliant point raised by John, because I'm sure we probably all experience it. And I think it was something, it might have been Glenn, something Glenn had said in a previous talk that's just stuck in my mind. And I've started to become more aware of this happening. So what I've started to ask myself now is, if something new and it's always shiny and exciting comes along, and obviously you want to jump in and say yes, I always pause now and say, well, what's the trade-off? Because my bucket's already full. I'm already spending my time. So if I'm going to accept that, what else on my list of goals am I willing to take off for however long it's going to take for that to materialize? And if there's nothing on my list I'm willing to deprioritize for that to come in, then I have to say no. As much as I would love to do it, because there are always good things that come our way, but I think it's just about getting a bit stricter and asking that question is, what are you willing to sacrifice for it?
That's absolutely right, Nicola. And that's the kind of consciousness I was trying to get at in some of the things I said. You've got to be very conscious in the moment of the effect and the impact of what you're agreeing to and what you're not agreeing to. So those priorities are there. You know what they are. You've got them on your list. You've got them in your calendar. They're in your 12-week plan. But if somebody comes along asking, as Nicola says, you've got to be very conscious about the impact that saying yes will have. And maybe that will stop us on occasion saying yes straight away, or saying yes in the way they want us to. We can do this, but we can't do it that way. Sorry. We can give you this, but we can't give you everything. So Nicola, that's wise words again, and a great summary of the problem. Thank you. See, Emma has her hand up. Lovely to hear from you, Emma.
Hi, Adrian. Yeah, this is a session. Apologies, I was a bit late to the party. But I think it's such a crucial topic, isn't it, of like staying on track and keeping focused. And I always remember once in business, I presented to a CEO, I was doing a sign-off, and I had all these amazing ideas. And I think I listed off about 25 things. And I remember him always saying to me, Emma, if you can just deliver the one which was going to give the biggest profit to the business, he goes, I really don't care about the others. The others were great, nice to have, but it's the focusing on that one that's going to deliver the profit to the company. And kind of that's always stuck with me. So regardless of, when you're doing things even for yourself, it's almost like doing the best job you can at what you've been given, rather than trying to do too many things for everyone and not doing a great job of it. So that's kind of always been my focus. I just thought it was great advice at the time, and it's one that I've always kind of followed since. So it's good.
Emma, I love that. And that follows up from what John said about the most benefit to the most people, and identifying why that is. Most benefit to your company. You are now a personal business. You're a stall holder. You're whatever you've decided to be. And every effort has to go into your own personal stall to make it look great, make it operate well, give great customer service. So what is the thing you can do that will provide the most benefit in that regard? I love that, Emma. I think it's absolutely right. Really testing the value that's generated by what it is you're going to do. Is there any value in it at all? Is it just decorative and lovely, but not impactful on your future entrepreneurial endeavor? Great, Emma. Yeah, I love that. Love that. So we have no more hands up at the moment. We may be edging towards a close here, but I was just going to say again, you are all champions, and I believe that. I've told you many times. So I know that if you really try and do something about this, as I have to do, and as John's saying he has to do as well, right now, maybe take some time out this week to map it all out. I'm absolutely convinced that if I ask you about this in December, you'll be telling me a very different story about how you've reached goal X, Y, and Z. I'm convinced that is the case, because John and I know, having lived this, and many of you lived it, that these priority problems can just diffuse your whole effort and mean you don't really achieve your potential. It's so easy not to, so easy not to. So go for it, everybody. And lovely to see you all on the call. Bit of housekeeping, I'll repeat again. Corporate Curios at 5 p.m. Eastern time with Ivier, which is 10 p.m. UK time. And then we have Wayne tonight as well, Metaphors for Success. And that's 9 p.m. Eastern time US, 2 a.m. I'm afraid in the UK. So only Ivia will probably be there, but from the UK, that is. It's very late, but it's great if you can make it. It's a great session. So 2 sessions, 2 valuable sessions today. Great to have had this session with you all, and I hope it's been some use. Thank you, everybody. We'll wrap up today. Hope to see you later. Thanks enormously.
Thank you, Adrian.
Thank you very much. Thanks, everybody. Take care.
Thank you.
Thanks,
See you later.
Um,
Bye for now. Bye for now.